There was about 3 of us up until about midnight, and we thought we had fixed it. I had this bad feeling, and so I kept poking at it, and I said, oh, we didn't actually fix it, pardon my language.
You know, if you try to appeal to everyone, then you end up appealing to no one. And so that's the challenge, right?
One of the most important challenges, and all the crypto projects are trying to solve today, is the user experience. Difficult to manage wallets, difficult to manage keys, it's difficult to have the minimum token to pay the gas fees and so on.
We looked at all these different problems, and we said, there's got to be a better way.
There's a huge volume of stablecoin on Aptos. We have the 3 biggest ones who are integrated.
We have actually tested Aptos to go to 30,000 transactions per second, which is an order of magnitude more than any other blockchain.
The user acquisition part is fairly easy. The user retention part is very hard to solve for.
I wouldn't be surprised if 2025 is really the year of Aptos.
Hello, it's a pleasure to have you, both of you today with us. The idea of this format is to give an accessible level of information about Aptos and how Aptos shakes actually the ecosystem. So before beginning and to go in details on the different topics we will cover today, please introduce yourself and how you are totally complementary on the bringing the voice of Aptos into the ecosystem.
We are complementary, David.
Indeed.
Do you want to start?
Well, you're definitely a much louder voice than I am.
Okay, that is not true, but I'm Alex. I am actually French, so I speak with these guys in French normally. And I'm one of the ecosystem leads at Aptos, and I do a lot of the relationship between founders, so ecosystem founders relations.
Perfect. David, head of engineering at Aptos. Leading into Aptos, I was actually part of the original team over at Facebook that built out the Libra and DM blockchains, which are the predecessors to Aptos. And it's been fun at Aptos, and we can talk about a bit about the genesis of Aptos, including the dinosaurs, as you alluded to. And so I'll save the story for later, but we're building out Aptos. We're working with the ecosystem and having fun with our partners across the board.
Welcome to this new episode of Manière Chain on Air. I'm Louis, CPTO at Manière. This episode is recorded in besides the Token 2049 happening in Dubai this week. And first, I would like to thank our partner Earth Mining Solution to host us today. In this episode, we will discover together a blockchain project. We will start with the genesis of the project, technical approach, value proposal, and on top of that, the ecosystem. Thanks to be with us during the next 30 minutes, and let's go. So, let's start by the genesis. So today Aptos, it's I think a very shiny brand into the crypto space, but it started in Web 2. Could you a bit elaborate on the origin of the project and how transition happened between Facebook and now?
Now you're going to get into the weeds that I don't usually go into, which is what happened in the Facebook chaotic days. So I'm not going to go so deep, but I think the original impetus for this came from folks like David Marcus, who was looking for ways to bring Facebook payments to the forefront and really accessible for broader set of individuals that are unbanked and had less access to digital interfaces and all those kind of aspects. And so they were looking for ways that they could go about doing that. They said, let's consider blockchains. They began to start an organization, which I believe at that point in time was called Calibra, which was the Facebook form of Libra, at which point they started building out an engineering team, started exploring what we could build inside of that space. In particular, we did analysis of existing blockchain technology, both in terms of performance, security, reliability, decentralization, and the general consensus. So this is roughly 2018, 2017. The general consensus at the point in time is the technology was still nascent, still exploratory, and not necessarily going to handle a lot of the requirements. In particular, I think we could talk about languages. So you've got the EVM, Solidity, and even at that point in time, and certainly through history, you can see there's been a lot of concerns around the security, the development of applications in the smart contract space of Solidity. And so there was a strong decision early on to say, hey, we can do something, we can build something that is more reliable, more scalable, safer. And so that was kind of the impetus for kicking off the Libra project. And so when a lot of people joined that, and myself included, there was the hope and dream that we'd be able to build this vast, permissionless, decentralized playground, all funded by Facebook. And so everybody was really, really excited, really, really motivated to build this out. And then certain individuals went in front of Congress, the US Congress, and said, we will not launch without your permission. And that came with a bunch of caveats saying, we don't want you to be permissionless. We don't want you to be that decentralized. We want you to be very careful and thoughtful about how you deploy. And so that substantially changed the trajectory for the project. And so you could actually see in the first Libra white paper, dreams, happiness. And then the actual DM white paper was the updated version, was much more reduced in scope and much more about more of the money transmission services. And effectively what we realized what we were building was there was going to be a handful of players and very few could actually deploy on that blockchain. Very few could actually be validators. And so we effectively realized we were building a very permissioned blockchain.
Yeah, centralized.
It's very centralized, yeah. Which, given a few months later, so this is roughly June 2022, the Fed finally said, this has been enough fun. We're going to be canceling all this. And so that was roughly the death knell for the project, which I think was kind of like a blessing. Because as I said, we were going all this way down the slope of happy, decentralized, permissionless to everybody's in a prison and you can only do, what the warden tells you can do. And we were very fortunate that, folks like Avery and Mo, who are the co-founders of Aptos, kind of said, we really believe in the technology, the opportunity here, and we're going to figure out what to do. Mind you, I went on a completely different tangent and said, oh, this will never work because there's already enough blockchains out there. We couldn't do it at Facebook. And so I had fun building platforms for bringing Web3 into Facebook. And so if you were on Facebook or Instagram, for a very brief period of time, you could actually get Ethereum and Solana NFTs as known as digital collectibles. Never liked the nomenclature, but you could view them inside of those platforms. So that's where I went because I'm like, I need a break from trying to build a new layer one.
That was you?
Yeah, that was me.
I never knew that.
That's why we're here today.
Yeah.
I'm
getting
just
to
with
know
this
you.
conversation right here. And so the next 6 months went by. So this is from June through the end of the year of 2022, or 2021, sorry. And Avery and I were still meeting regularly. And I would kind of tease him and say, what are you going to do, man? You're not making any progress at Aptos or Facebook. What are you going to do with this blockchain technology? Do something, man. And then one day he's like, David, I'm going to do a startup. Are you interested? And I was like, bro, good luck.
I'm out. Good luck.
I said more choice words, but we'll give the PG version here. And so roughly 4 months later, so in December, he and Mo finally left. And I waited until the end of January to reach out just to troll him. Because, whenever a good colleague leaves, you want to make sure that they're not doing that well and that you're doing better. So I reached out to him and said, Avery, what's going on, man? Do you want to come back? We need help. This project over here, this Web3 infrastructure we're building is tough. We need your thoughtful leadership and all that good stuff that you can bring. And he's like, David, I have $200 million in the bank. What are you doing?
What did you say?
Well, there was about 48 hours worth of conversations that happened. And the key things looking at Aptos that I think make Aptos really unique, which isn't the VC funding. The VC funding just helps, ease the nerves of getting people to embrace the cast they're about to jump into. But it was the amazing people. We brought in a lot of really thoughtful, hardworking individuals that had been really driving that vision and direction for the Facebook Libra project. And they were all excited to come into this. And they actually, many of them had committed before I did. And so I was like, Avery, you've been poaching all of my great friends. I miss them. I want them. And I don't think poaching is the right word because I think they actually aggressively were trying to get to work with Avery. But they were largely aligned to join, and I recognized that. I'm like, that'd be a lot of fun to continue to work with those folks. And then the other one, which I didn't talk much about my background, but I was in academia for a long time working in cryptography, decentralized systems, and I never had actually gotten to do anything practical with my education, with my background. And so blockchains, Facebook, Libra was actually the first.
It was an opportunity to, yeah.
So it was like, perfect. You've got the intersection of impact and passion, and that had evaporated with the demise of the project, but had been rekindled with the possibility of what Aptos was going to be. And so I said, okay, you've got money, you've got people, and you've got passion.
No, we need a product.
Yes, well, exactly. And so the team basically got kickstarted in the middle of February of 2022, and we had no idea what we were doing. And so we took a small break, a small pause, like about 30 seconds, and said, let's give ourselves a series of dates. The first one was, let's try to launch by fall. We're going to have Aptos autumn. And so that was the goal, is to launch within autumn. We missed it by a few days, but I'll get there.
we did.
No, we did not, friend. You have to know when
October.
the autumnal equinox
You have to know
is.
when fall starts.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Then we had DevNet. So we wanted to get DevNet. So that's when you first start having the opportunity to really build on something. So we set that for 1 month later. And then we had a whole bunch of dates in the middle of like test nets to kind of bring the ecosystem together and test out the technology. So that first 30 days was people waking up and realizing we were no longer at Facebook. We no longer had the micro kitchens. Just to be clear, Facebook micro kitchens are amazing. They have all the food, all the snacks, all the beverages you could ever imagine. Coffee machines as big as I am that make you lattes and cappuccinos, and they're perfect. And so we went from that to this rinky-dinky office called JJ Lake, which nobody should ever know about or ever visit, but it's a great place. JJ Lake, thank you for your services. And yeah, so we went from that place to this ragtag team saying, okay, we took this technology that we made more and more permissioned, more and more centralized, and we said, we need to at least make it so we can allow people to start hacking on Aptos, which meant making sure that they could publish their modules, giving them tools to do so.
Can be,
Yeah. So they, like before that, nobody had actually developed Move outside of our small group.
And did you restart from scratch, or have you had the chance to move out Facebook with all the code and all the listing projects?
So the benefit was we built this all open source.
Okay.
And so, an Apache license meant that nobody really had any claim against the source code. And actually what Avery and Mo did is they talked to Facebook leadership and said, hey, we're really excited to do this. Do you have any concerns about doing that?
Okay, yeah, from the beginning it's open source.
Yeah.
Even at Facebook.
Yes. But the other perk being that they had an agreement with Facebook saying that, hey, no matter what we do, you're cool with that. And Facebook's like, yeah, who cares? You guys can go have fun. And so it started out really in the right direction, but it was a lot of technical work of just chopping out all the ugly centralized bits. And so we get that to that DevNet. There was a bit of fun there where the day before we started doing our last stress tests and things that weren't working quite right, we played around with it. And I think there was about 3 of us up until about midnight, and we thought we had fixed it. I had this bad feeling. And so I kept poking at it, and I said, oh shit, we didn't actually fix it, pardon my language. But it was no shit moment. So I ended up staying up until about 3 o'clock until I finally figured out the problem. Then I started trying to fix it, but I didn't know what I was doing. About 6 o'clock, I decided to wake up the people that did know how to fix it. And they're like, damn it, David should have woken us up 3 hours ago. But they were really great. They ended up getting it fixed. We ended up launching our DevNet on the same day. And so, it went really well. We got the bit of excitement, enthusiasm. We started seeing people funnel into our Discord, started seeing people develop. We had a hackathon about 2 months later in early May where we got some early projects. In fact, Icania, a club building on top of Aptos, that's where we first got to meet them. So they're probably the earliest continuous builder on Aptos from that first hackathon. We went through, like I said, the several test nets. We saw our ecosystem swell up. It was an amazing experience. We hit mainnet in October 18th, I think. So it wasn't quite the autumn that we were aiming for. You're right, it's still technically autumn, but it wasn't the autumn that we were expecting.
On the
we were
calendar,
we're about a month later than we wanted to. We were really aiming for the beginning of, or the late September timeframe.
A month is not bad though in a space.
I mean, a month is technically on time in this space.
Yeah, it is on time actually. Yeah, it is.
And so that's kind of like where we got to. And, there's a little bit more there, if you think about the timing, you might have remembered earlier in the summer, there was the collapse of Terra Luna. A month after we launched, it was the collapse of FTX. So we had a lovely sandwich right there.
Yeah, perfect launch.
Yeah, it was.
Timing was amazing.
Perfect timing. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, that ecosystem that we had been nurturing, which I don't know if you call it an ecosystem that we were really nurturing, because it was mostly the technical team, the engineers that were actually the ambassadors or the community and ecosystem partners, when we had no idea what we were doing, of course. And so we were just like, it's all free love, happiness. And I think in the previous environments, prior to these organizations disappearing, there was a lot more natural energy happy in the space where people would explore, launch projects, and there'd be a natural tension and attraction to that. But what happened after that is retraction. A lot of less funds were funneling into projects. We actually saw a majority, I would say, of our projects that were pre-mainnet and even launched into mainnet disappear shortly after like that November, December timeframe. And so, we're going into the new year. We got to launch. Everybody's a little bit tired because, as many colleagues call it, it's the beginning of many death marches that you make as a layer one. And we succeeded, but at the same time, we had to recover. So going into the next year, we focused a lot on enabling developers and builders to come in. We had a great partnership with a company that's a Web3 organization called Metapixel, a subsidiary of NPixel. We built out vast arrays of different technologies to make it really easy to build games on top of Aptos. We got all the way to August, heard that they had the best playtest in Web3 ever. In September, they were no longer. So it's a very fun story for Aptos. But we turned that into something pretty cool where we built a large-scale online community drawing application. So we had like hundreds of thousands of people all collaboratively draw, much like you could imagine on a Google Doc or something like that. And we saw lots of transactions, I think millions of transactions. So lots of people drawing all together. It's called Graphio. There's some really cool graphics out there demonstrating over like a 48-hour period of time what chaos or,
That was
art.
for the 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, for a 1 year anniversary. So that was kind of how we translated that awkward situation into a beautiful thing because we were able to demonstrate all the cool tech we'd been building for partners to scale up on Aptos. Heading into the next year, so this would be 2024, we made a substantial effort to bring in more institutional RWA partners as well as enterprises. I think the big key takeaway there is at the end of the year, we were ranked, I think, 4th or 5th on the RWA XYZ board. So we've got substantial...
It brought liquidity on the ecosystem.
And you have USDC, USDT, all these great stables. We'd really focused on, if you recall, I talked about how we had the digital collectibles at Facebook. One of the biggest challenges there was that we actually had a team of, I think, like 10 to 15 engineers building the platform to take all that data from the blockchains, from Solana, from Ethereum. That's a lot of manpower. That's very expensive. And so thinking about the developer experience, especially on a new blockchain like Aptos, I was very concerned that we'd end up seeing developers burn a lot of time just figuring out Aptos, figuring out Web3, and the whole challenge and paradigm shift that they might have to face coming from Solidity or Rust is a lot easier, but coming from different backgrounds coming into Aptos. And so we built out a lot of the infrastructure to try to make it like the cloud of Web3, not quite Shopify.
Easy experience for developers to onboard because blockchain projects are not well documented on a daily on a basis, and it's quite difficult, and most of the time you have to reverse the GitHub project to find info or to find the most updated info on product. So developer experience is I think one of the most important challenges to solve as a blockchain project, whatever you are, a chain or your DApp or whatever infrastructure project or infrastructure tool you offer. But I think it's one of the most important challenges to bring builders to come on your project.
Yeah, so now we've got a really amazing tech to make it easy to build on Aptos. It's called Build. You can check it out. Lots of free credits and service available for devs that are looking to get into Aptos or Web3. We've got the stables, and we're primed for 2025. And I can keep on going, or we can turn it more into a conversation.
I told you it was a yapper.
Very interesting. Well, the original project is very, very interesting, and I think if you are not a Aptos maximalist, not a lot of people are at the chance to have the full story. So that was very interesting to have the step-by-step evolution of the project. So that was cool. Thanks for that.
Honestly, though, I'm really glad you gave the whole backstory because some of it I didn't even know of the details, right? But I think it's also really important for people to know where it's coming from. And what I love about David is you can tell he's raging with passion. And I think it's just a really good sign for layer one when you're seeing all of the ones that are out there right now.
Yeah, that was one of my questions about what differentiates you from all the others in the ecosystem. And I think one of the answers is initially it came from usages, real use case, Web2 company looking to solve real use case, real world use cases with blockchain. And for so many reasons, it never happened. And this amazing tech and amazing concept has been distributed to the world on a more permissionless phase. So that's a very interesting differentiator against all the others and all the chain and all the project on the market today. So that was cool. And just to go in that direction, from a technical perspective, what makes Aptos different from the others today? In terms of narratives, we talk about institutionals and how to bring liquidity on board. But today, how do you position yourself? Some of blockchains are more on the DeFi stuff, financial pro ecosystem. More blockchain projects are more on the gaming ecosystem. Some use cases are around AI. Which future is for Aptos in terms of use cases? What are your targets?
We can both talk about it, I think, a little bit differently, which is also what's interesting.
That's why it's interesting to have you both today.
I can speak on a level of being with the founders, being with the community and the ecosystem, and also being in the Web3 space as a whole. And then I think David can go a little bit more granular into what the tech is best suited for. But I think one thing that's a little bit challenging when you're a layer one like Aptos is that you are built for everything. So technically, everything can be done, right? And so when it comes to narrative and the way you want to be perceived in the market, the challenge is that you want people to know that they can literally build any type of projects, right, and infrastructure on top of it. But you also, if you try to appeal to everyone, then you end up appealing to no one. And so that's the challenge, right? So we have allowed people to do a lot of different things, gaming being one of them. And you talked about MeterPixel, which is today supervillain, actually, which is still thriving. We have people like Kgen who do amazing gaming as well. But then, in 2025, we really said, what is it that we want people to build on Aptos? How is the tech going to be enabling something that's so much better than what's out there? And what is it that's actually needed, right? And so what we came up with basically is Aptos is amazing for everything trading. We want to make it accessible. We want to make it a good experience. And so the narrative today is very DeFi oriented and very trading oriented. So the global trading engine is how we call it, and that's what Aptos is trying to build. And then we also have a very strong focus on RWAs, as you mentioned, but also payments. Payments is something that's really needed. There's a huge volume of stablecoin on Aptos. We have the three biggest ones who are integrated. So you have native Aptos USDC, USDT, and Ethena as well. And so that kind of covers the things that we are, I want to say, the most excited to see happen and to enable builders to do on the chain, while also letting them know you can literally build anything, though, if you wanted to. That's my 2 cents, but what's your...
Why am I here again?
My 2 cents or my 3 cents.
Yeah. I think if we were to go in a little bit deeper, is behind a lot of what Alex talked about is when you talk about on the gaming front, gaming isn't about gaming. It's about digital asset ownership. It's about payments. And so that technology, we want to make that easier. We want to make it more accessible. And I think when you look at digital assets, there's a lot of fragmentation. You go to different marketplaces and you might see some of the assets there. You might see them on other places. Content owners also are wanting to say that they have dedicated marketplaces for their own content because you're thinking about a ticketing solution. They don't want you to say go to Rarible or OpenSea and go buy or trade your tickets there. They want to say this is a dedicated, curated experience for secondary ticket sales. You can still go to these other sites, but here's the right place, the right experience. And so you want to have that kind of be universal. So we've got a very dedicated effort towards unifying all of these different marketplaces by building out a dedicated NFT aggregator, if you will, which will then enable a lot of this really cool experiences for builders, for consumers. We're also looking into, as you said, the payment space. The key thing in that space, and you asked about the technical differentiators, is we have actually tested Aptos to go to 30,000 transactions per second, which is an order of magnitude more than any other blockchain. And we're still able to maintain sub-second latency. So this means you send a transaction in critical peak usage, and you're still done in like that.
Yeah, it's not Bitcoin.
And it's not, yeah, it's amazing. And with all the stables that we have there, you're actually able to maintain the value of your transactions and make it seamless, make it a great experience. And this is what you really want to have as native type of payment experiences as possible. And so when you think about the gaming example, it's not about getting this one NFT that represents you played a game. It's more about, getting this new asset that extends the game content experience.
How to pay in-app content
Right,
to enhance
exactly.
the experience. And so
Being able to trade that with others and being able to purchase wherever you are, with whatever currency, with whatever experience you want. Because one of the biggest challenges is, we've got these partners that are across the world, and what they're telling us is payment solutions in different regions of the world, sometimes it's really easy, sometimes it's a pain in the butt. And by being able to leverage crypto, that means anybody from anywhere, regardless of what their region is, they can easily get into and start accessing this content without having to go through services that might charge 30% or more just to gain access. And so I think it's a real game changer and enabler in that space. In terms of the trading engine, I think the greatest example there is Hyperliquid. Like Hyperliquid came in, has been dominating the space, and they've done so in a way that's really unique because they're largely kind of like centralized, and they're built specifically for trading. And so I was actually at a panel earlier this week. We're here at Token 2049 in Dubai, and the panel was specifically about general purpose high performance layer ones. And I've been thinking about what we're trying to do in the trade engine, what Hyperliquid did, and it's really become very apparent that general purpose blockchain as a concept has its limitations. Each transaction is going to be executed independent of each other. In Aptos, we have this ability to do parallelization, but that doesn't allow for interleaving when you're talking about a shared state. And the shared state is like an LP on an AMM or an order book. Like there's just no way to have two transactions that interact with the same AMM at the exact same time. It's just not feasible. And so, what we're moving towards is special native ways of actually looking at the set of transactions so that we can optimize performance in a way that competes with, more with application-specific solutions. And so I do believe fundamentally, and this is where we're taking Aptos, is to be more and more specialized for specific applications. And so that's, we start first at the higher level layers, whether it be platforms and protocols that sit on top of the blockchain. And now we're understanding as we go deeper and deeper so that we can actually make this super high performance, super accessible. And then the other aspect is a lot of these take a lot of time research to build them effectively. And you don't want your community to figure out how to build these high performance things. It's not the best use of their time. They're here, they're businesses. They're trying to get a product to market. They're not infrastructure teams. They're not platform teams. And that's not how they're going to make their investors the happiest, by saying, oh, look at this amazing platform I have, but I have no users. What's going to make them, their investors and them, their own pink role look good is by actually going straight to the business problems, getting their consumers on board. And so we want to eliminate as much of that complex, ugly infrastructure logic for them so that they're primarily in the product space and delivering it as quickly and as effectively as possible, meanwhile getting to benefit from all the high performance and easy to use technology that we're building inside of Aptos.
Yeah, we more or less same idea or same concept, but the origin of the project providing a solution to make payment into Facebook or to manage collectibles on an easy way without showing all the complexity of the Web3 ecosystem. At the end of the day, just to bring usages and to bring to solve technical challenges, to ease as the best possible the user experience for trading, for gaming, for whatever, WA, whatever you want. So I think what you will try to solve is to bring the next version of internet, if we can call it like that, for the usages of tomorrow in a high performance and high frequency performance world. I think it's if we can wrap up like that this point, I think it's what you are trying to solve, to bring the best of the tech to solve the usages.
Precisely.
In terms of that, I think one of the most important challenges, and all the crypto projects are trying to solve today, is the user experience, the specific user experience, how to use the user experience. Before we are all in that business since a long time. Difficult to manage wallets, difficult to manage keys, it's difficult to have the minimum token to pay the gas fees and so on. And I think everyone in the class is trying to solve how to ease that, to offer the best tool possible to developers, to offer the best experience without managing all this stupid stuff, because it's a showstopper for a lot of traditional users outside of our ecosystem.
Creates friction for sure.
Yeah, that's Yeah, great segue. And we alluded to how we start at the higher level layers and we work our way into to improve Aptos at the core layer. And in many ways, that's what we've taken in those slew of problems. And to go one step deeper into that process, you think about the current process of the majority of Web3. First, you have to identify a blockchain that you're interested in interacting with. You can go in one of two directions. We'll go the most intuitive one. You go to a centralized exchange that has the utility token that you're looking for, and you'll go and consume some, which means you have to go do KYC, go through that whole process. Then you'll say, okay, well, I need to now transfer this to that blockchain, which means you have to find a native wallet, you have to install it, you have to get comfortable with it, you have to somehow you have to learn about your address, whatever the heck that is, and send that over to your centralized exchange, make a transfer. But then you're gonna quickly find out that many times you have a 7-day delay between the time that you can open your account and start making transfers outside of your account. And then finally, you can start interacting with applications. But even in that space, a lot of applications don't necessarily tell you what they're doing. And there's like, well, I'm just going into this blind hoping that things work out. And then the worst of it is if you do this all on your phone and your phone gets flung into the water and doesn't work anymore, you've now lost all of your assets that were in your wallet. And so we looked at all these different problems and we said, there's got to be a better way. And we have got a lot of partners that are just like, we want to bring users in. We're willing to cover the majority of the costs for them interacting with the application, the experience. We just want to get them excited and try new things. And so we solved the problems of the account management problem. And so we introduced this concept of keyless, which allows you to effectively use your social login to manage an account on chain. It's really cool. It's really simple, really easy to use. And we've got a handful of different ways in which that's been applied across the ecosystem. The one that we've taken to market is called Aptos Connect, which is effectively a web-based wallet that uses a keyless concept to manage your account on chain. So now if I ever need to, send some, money to Leaks because she...
Do you want to?
No, not particularly. But, oftentimes she's up to no good and she's like, David, I lost my wallet. And I'm like, do you still have your social login? She says, yes. So I sent over to her, her email address. I'm not going to dox her here. And she's like, cool, I got it. I can go finally, take care of the bills. I can get to, wherever I need to go, get her cappuccino and her croissant.
In Paris.
So it's a really seamless experience that just allows her or anybody to get easy access to, receiving, sending cryptocurrencies or interacting with any application on top of Aptos, because we also have the wallet adapter that we manage and support, which allows us to kind of say Aptos Connect is a preferred wallet within the space, and now it's ubiquitous. And so that means you do not have to go download anything to interact with the majority of the Aptos ecosystem.
Web2 usage, you can log in and start
the same way you connect to everything basically today.
Yeah,
where
Google
instead
Connect.
of creating an account, you just click on connect with Google and then it's right there.
Yeah, quite simple.
Yeah.
And then we've got the other problem, which is how do you get APT, which is the utility token. And there's two things there. One is we've been really fortunate that we've brought in a lot of on-ramp partners. So you can easily go into Aptos Connect or the mobile wallet and just seamlessly purchase APT with your credit card. But that wouldn't be enough, because the other thing we want to do is, again, make it so that you don't even have to deal with that. And so we actually have built-in native sponsored transactions. And what this effectively allows an application to say is, I'm going to pay for all the fees associated with my application. The user just needs to go ahead and give me the transaction. I'll sign off on it, and I will end up paying the APT. But the thing that I really like about this all is it's almost free. In order to do a transaction on Aptos,
I was about to say that it's pretty cheap, so you can pay for that.
Exactly.
But I think that part is more important than you think, because I speak with a lot of people who are more of a retail user, right? And so they tell me, okay, it's very cheap and it's cheaper than other blockchains, but other blockchains are not that expensive. And I tell them, you might feel that way when you do your only transaction, but when you're a protocol and you're actually subsidizing the cost of the gas fees, we're talking about thousands, thousands. And that's when actually the cost adds up, and when a difference like this makes a lot of difference at the end of the day.
No, but at the end of the day, it's an opportunity for an application to use blockchain as a hosting provider, or if we can say like that, and potentially use blockchain on a secure way instead of pushing an app on a Web2 mode on AWS. And I'm pretty sure that running the app on a blockchain project will be cheaper than paying the bill at the end of the day at AWS.
It is, but also on the user side, if you have never had any APT and you're connecting through Google, right? as David mentioned, you don't have any APT in your wallet.
Yeah.
And even if it's super cheap, even if it's 0.0002,
Yeah, you have to pay for the gas fees.
Yeah, and you don't want to run into the message, which many of us have, that says you don't have enough ETH to cover gas fees, so you can't execute this transaction, basically. So that's
Yeah. And the challenge with ETH is you end up having, if you're a provider, you have to create all these partnerships so you can actually get gas stations on board with your application because of the fact that there's no actual built-in support for gas stations or a sponsored transaction in Ethereum. It requires all this other fun hardware on the outside.
We cover a lot of stuff about technical value that Aptos can bring. So I'm a builder. I'm starting my project. Which kind of support I can have from the
Dedicated support from Alex 24/7.
yeah,
but I do though.
yeah,
It's true.
from the ecosystem team, from the foundation, from the tools, documentation can I have. As a builder, what is the support I have to convince me to go on Aptos today?
Different categories of support. Of course, a lot of builders are looking first and foremost for funding, right? To at least kickstart their development because, you know, you need to pay for developers, some marketing, a bunch of things. So we do have a grant program. There's different ways you can apply. Either you talk to us and then we are like, yeah, let's definitely do this on a one-on-one basis. And then we go through an ad hoc process. Otherwise, you just go on the Aptos Foundation and then you apply in there. I think the one point of entry that we're looking at the most right now is definitely all the hackathons and different accelerators that we have. We have quite a lot of different ones, and some of them are more regional. So we just had one, for example, with Joel that was move. How did they call it? Meta move. Sorry, there's so many moves in the ecosystem. Meta move. They just wrapped up their hackathon, and so you have a lot of builders who come in. They start a project, right? They have sometimes an MVP, a demo, depends on what the hackathon requests, and for you to be able to apply. And then I've met actually the winners who were announced recently, and they were like, "It's my first time on Aptos, like so, you know, now I'm in essentially." And so like, okay, let's move this forward. That's your point of entry. You got some funding to kickstart the project already. So that's the grants, that's the accelerators and hackathons. And then when it comes to a broader scope, our amazing team of engineers and DevRels as well, which you manage, David, right?
I do.
It's
You can't really manage DevRel, to be clear.
That's true. Someone from the ecosystem was telling me it's like a herd of cats that you're trying to get one place and they all get distracted with stuff. But yeah, they're amazing DevRels. We will support you on anything that you need technical. The thing is, Move is a fairly new language, right? So it's still being developed. And so we also do love the collaboration of, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. Like, how does that happen? So we have all the Telegram chats, the Discords and whatever. And then we will also literally have people dedicated to helping you build your own product. You also get someone who's a POC for you within the foundation. So, you know, you have this very dedicated support. Of course, you know, there's only so many that we can do at once. But yeah, we try to be very granular and have, you know, access to everyone.
Yeah, and to cover all the needs from financial to the technical stuff to start as fast as possible MVP product.
Yeah, totally. And then the last one would be probably on the marketing front. And I think that's the biggest problem to solve for in the space, to be honest. It's marketing, getting visibility out there. But also I feel like from my experience working with so many different teams and projects across different verticals, the user acquisition part is fairly easy. The user retention part is very hard to solve for. And that's when having a project that's sustained and having founders that are very involved and, you know, keep on putting their voice out there is really important. So we do support on the marketing front, right? We want to show to the community, to anyone in the space, really, here's what's being built, here's why it's important, and here's how it aligns with Aptos and what we're trying to do. They're a good example of that. That goes through amplification through socials, but we also try to do, for example, when we have events like here, we did quite a few in Dubai, trying to align, right? Let's co-host an event. Let's have you guys speak because the audience is going to be right for you. Can we put you on a panel so that you're actually showcasing what you can do with the tech that's been built by the team? What does it look like from a builder's perspective and a user perspective as well? So there's many different ways that we support the teams. I think some people get frustrated if they don't get in right away, whether it's, you know, through a grants program or a hackathon. But I want to say we want to have this pretty white glove support, and so we do have to be a tiny bit selective with who we can support first based on the vision that Aptos is trying to execute, although we obviously welcome everyone. So that's a little bit of the panel of the support that we bring. Did I forget anything?
Well, I would just go a little bit deeper into, like, grants are really hard to manage. Like, if you think about submissions. You could get hundreds or thousands of submissions into a grant program in any given time period. And from the submitter's perspective, it's the most important thing in the world. And it's really important to us, but when you have that many, it's really hard to evaluate the proposal. So this is like your product proposal, if you will, the competency of the team and the ability to actually build and deliver what's in that space. You know, it's easy to feel dismissed in that process. And so, as Alik said effectively, is like, we want people to really engage more with our hackathons. Our hackathons moving forward are going to be very well sponsored. So if you get a prize, it's effectively going to be equivalent to getting a grant from Aptos.
Hackathon is a way also to prove your value.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you showcase
instead
your
of
product.
just filling a form and asking for money, and after that, dump the token.
Yeah.
And,
it also gives a chance for evolution because you're going there in person, you're giving your pitch, you're going to have a lot of people on hand, or whether it's online, and similarly we'll have the various different forums available for communication, and you're going to get feedback. Ultimately, no matter what, you're going to get feedback in that end-to-end process. And so whether or not you win the hackathon, you still had a valuable experience. We learned about who you are, and there's going to be continuous hackathons, so you can continue to move towards that direction. And you may even win the hackathon, but you might recognize that that's not the product you want to go with. But now you've got funding that allows you to kind of go and explore and do more in that space. So you're able to kind of sustain if you're, you know, a higher quality, you know, solid dev in that space. And so that's kind of our goal is we want to get developers and builders in Aptos to start feeling warm, feeling loved, and helping them kind of funnel down to the point where they are actually getting into the accelerator. Because again, the accelerators have, how many slots can you really fit and give like high quality, intense kind of support? And, you know, it is a challenging effort for us, and so, you know, for developers in the space, we want to recognize the effort that you're bringing to, but realize that we also want to make sure that we are focused on quality
instead
over quantity. I mean, we could easily go and say everybody's getting something, but then everybody's gonna be sad about
it.
Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't work. But actually, that's a question that I get a lot from people who are not yet in the ecosystem. It's, what do you look at when you assess projects? So I can speak a little bit on this. As David mentioned, one thing that I really like about hackathons is you get to know people on a more personal level right away. And I think the quality and the mindset of the founders is really, really important.
Yeah, the people before the product.
Because, you know, as mentioned, first of all, the market pivots so quickly, and there's something that might happen that's going to completely switch the direction of the whole entire space and the whole attention of the people in the space. And so even if it's not the product that you're going to end up building, if we see that you're a strong builder and that you have this grit really, and that you're dedicated to making it work on Aptos because you recognize that the tech has the capabilities, this is something that we're going to be looking at very, very closely. So it's not purely about the end product, it's more so about the team behind it. I think we've seen I think everyone can attest to this in the space. You have builders who go into every single foundation and then ask for money. And so there's really no focus on, here's why we want to use Aptos, or here's why we want to use X, Y, and Z blockchain. It's like, we're going to try, and whoever gives us the most money is where we're going to go. That's a question that I ask a lot of people. It's like, so why do you want to build this on Aptos? Like, why do you feel it's going to be a good fit? And I look at this answer a lot, to be honest. So the quality of the founder as people is very, very important. And then a lot of it is also going to be, are you just trying to add as many chains as you can in your product in a way that doesn't really make sense, or are you really dedicated to being a part of this community and really growing with us? So it's underrated, I feel, in this space.
Absolutely.
Nice. Foundation looks pretty involved in the community and the ecosystem. Project starts in a very centralized way. How does looks like today the governance of Aptos? Who takes the decision?
I mean, I think it's a fascinating question. We're still really early in the overall process. I mean, I think if you look at the details, you know, Labs was founded in February of 2022. I think Foundation came online sometime in the late 2022. So
I was about to say 2023, but maybe not.
Well,
yeah,
either way, we're not the experts in the space. This is not, we're not being recorded for legal purposes. We plead the fifth, all those kind of things. Give me a flight home quickly. But you know, the foundation is really driving a lot of the governance processes. I would say the current efforts that you see majority on governance and the evolution are primarily on technology. And so Labs has been primarily providing the contracted engineering support, the vision and the direction on the engineering front. And therefore, people are welcome to voice their opinions. We've got a lot of folks that have substantial stake in Aptos, and Aptos is a decentralized organization that allows those that have stake in the actual protocol to make votes. And so you can see a mixture of the foundation and these entities voting on the efforts that the engineering team has been pushing forward. I think almost all of the proposals have been approved. We've had a couple cases where it's like, this looks really good. We discussed it and we decided to say maybe not yet, or we'll evaluate it later. And so you can actually see.
So everything is going through a vote.
Everything
Technical,
is, yeah.
product,
AIPs,
grants.
No, so this is just for the evolution of the blockchain technology itself. That's all on-chain votes, so that we actually have a pure on-chain governance that allows people to see what these are, validate what's going to happen, and actually be able to take their stake and vote against it, and then execute the proposals seamlessly. And so that's one aspect of governance. And most recently, I think the most interesting case has come about where one of our community members made a proposal to drop the rewards rate for APT.
That was my question coming. Directly linked to staking and yield generation.
AIP 119.
Yeah, 119. That's the lucky number.
That's the one.
And so in that case, an individual who's been in our DeFi ecosystem for probably pre-mainnet has just been like, I think we need to evolve Aptos. We need to move away from or easy rewards that result in, I think dumping of APT and not necessarily bringing in the core value and making people think radically about how they can make good yield and good applications, DeFi applications on Aptos. Has proposed that we dramatically drop the APR by, I think, roughly like 3.1% over a very brief period of time. It's definitely an attention grabbing headline. You can go on Twitter and see lots of great conversations. I think we recently had a AIP community meeting where actually we brought in anybody that was interested to share their opinion, voice concerns or ideation in that space. And so you can really see like this is a great example of where governance is going in this space. And so started as a proposal, just a AIP, an Aptos improvement proposal. There's been conversations in various different domains. We have also the GitHub conversations, which show, well thought out conversation. You have Twitter, which is a balance between well thought out and just deranged nonsense. I partake more in the latter.
Deranged is a nice way to put it.
And then we have the conversations are happening. And the one thing I really like is I actually had a chance to speak with many of our protocols in person, being that we're here at this event, and we're ideating in the space on, okay, here's this really ambitious proposal. Maybe it's too ambitious. What could we say are like 3 different ways that we could slice this up? Some of it is like, well, maybe let's explore doing it more slowly. Because, in economics, you don't want to go and do something dramatic and say, haha, let's see what happens. You want to do something a little bit and test to see what happens.
Yeah, step by step.
Exactly. So that's one thing that happened. Another one was, well, if our goal is to get people into DeFi, one of the areas that's really interesting to DeFi is yield. And, we talked before this about looping. So in Aptos, you can effectively take APT, you can liquid stake it to something like STAPT, you can put that into a borrow lend product. You then can borrow APT, stake that, and continue this in for like 10 times or 20 times, and you can end up with a ridiculously high yield. But what you've been doing this, what you're really saying is, I am committed to the future of APT, because the time and energy required to unloop it is, if you do it 20 times, it could take half a year to unloop it.
Especially if it's a cold wallet.
Right. And so you don't have to worry about the people getting these yields going quickly dumping it. It's an investment. I am committed to Aptos. And that's where we really want to see, at least what I do, I should say, and me personally, I want to be focused on empowering that type of entity. So, another individual said, David, why don't we can potentially lower the yield for like traditional staking, but let's figure out how we can incentivize assets moving more towards liquid staking and being used for DeFi applications. Because the challenge is if you just do staking, there's no implications on DeFi, and there's no implications on the overall TVL as measured by many of the external parties out there. And so if our goal is to really demonstrate the trading engine that is Aptos, some of these decisions can actually help us move towards that direction. I think by having this, starting from like one individual's, dare I say, wild idea, has sparked a broader conversation about how we as a community can help make Aptos much more attractive for, retail coming in and identifying great opportunities.
Interesting. And why I'm not making that dynamically depending the stake of the protocol? So reward more when the stake decrease and reward less when the stake increase, to make some kind of mechanism of equilibrium between stakers' yield and maybe DeFi yield. Is there a chance to see that happen dynamically, or?
You should put that on Twitter. And we shall see.
There you go. I like that. I mean, I think it's going to be an evolution of seeing where mindshare goes, and I honestly don't know how any of these things ultimately play out. And so that's why I like the ideas of trying a little bit of everything and seeing what happens. But I think the most important thing for me personally is that we focus on the people that have done the most for Aptos, and that's our community. That's the people that are actively going around sharing the message, showing people how to actually use Aptos. It's great when you hear the stories about, I opened up Petra, which is our wallet, and I showed my parents how they can easily go and make something between 9 to 10% yield on their stable coins. And it's really easy to go in and convert, you have USD or whatever you have, and you convert it easily into that. You bring it to Petra, and all of a sudden you're now making pretty decent return of your interest rate, which beats what you might be making from going through traditional banking. And then you can go down the degen path of infinitely looping your APT to the moon.
Great.
To the moon is crazy.
Maybe as a conclusion, what are the next steps, next big milestones for Aptos?
Well, that gets into a little bit of the weeds that we're probably not going to be sharing without Avery, our CEO, going first. But I'm really bullish about the narrative on the global trading engine. I think you're going to see over the next 6 to 8 months a lot of really great technology and products coming out that assist that. I think you're going to see us working deeply within our ecosystem to go and empower them to build much more effectively inside of Aptos. And so I wouldn't be surprised by, if 2025 is really the year of Aptos. And you're going to see that all happening ideally in Aptos autumn. But don't quote me on that.
We shall see. Yeah. Well, talking about this, Avery actually put out a very good article that highlights a couple of the technical components that we're working on. That some of them I'm very excited about, like cross-chain abstraction, for example, is one of them. So I would highly recommend reading this, and it give you a pretty good idea of what's coming for 2025 on the technical standpoint. I think for me on the ecosystem, we have a lot of very good protocols that are coming live onto testnet, mainnet. Actually, I think we had yesterday TAP exchange, the first V4 DEX.
Oh, sweet.
Went live on testnet. And then one thing that I want to add, because we talked about the ecosystem support that we bring, we are developing programs within Aptos that are pretty selective again, but because we really want to focus on people. The latest one, which we had an event for yesterday, being LFM. So once project go through everything we talked about, right, from hackathon to going live on mainnet, fundraising and whatnot, a lot of them do want to go into TGE. And so we want to be sure that they are supported in the way that they should be when that happens. And so we have this program that's called LFM that takes some of this project and helps them launch on their token essentially successfully. So seeing this program evolve and getting more and more teams doing it, and gradually every month, every couple of months, whatever it may be, launching a new product. A token is a separate product from the protocol. It's something that I'm very much looking forward to.
Yeah, I think the bullets in there that might be buzzworthy are, there's a $200 million fund to support the LFM efforts.
DeFi, yeah.
And in terms of the actual roadmap, as Alik said, like we have these cross-chain accounts. So if you're not a native Aptos user, we've effectively eliminated the need to actually adopt anything Aptos. You can seamlessly CCTP in your USDC and start trading on any applications that support that in Aptos. So whether you want to do perps or start doing payments on Aptos applications, we're going to support that seamlessly from within your MetaMask, Phantom wallets, whatever wallet you're currently using. And then of course, like I said, the trading engine is coming, and that's going to be pretty freaking exciting.
It looks like to be huge.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for your time. That was very, very, very interesting. I love the Genesis story. So thanks for that. Any final word?
What's your final word, David?
I hadn't thought that far.
That's too much to ask. No, we're just very accessible. So if you're interested in Aptos, whether it's learning or building on Aptos, reach out. It's very easy. You can find me on Twitter, Telegram.
Yeah.
David's the same way.
DMs
or
are
at
open.
events. I'm pretty much on the world tour at this point, and I love to meet people in person. So yeah,
She's homeless.
I am basically homeless. He said the world is my home. is what we say.
Fair enough. Fair
It's a
enough.
better way to say that.
And I'm also excited to see the development of Maria at Aptos, actually, who recently became a validator. So
That was a very pleasant experience for our team, and I think we are cooking some application on top of that. So very excited to make it happen in coming months.
2025 is the year. Aptos looking good. That's the last words.
There you go. Don't be
Thanks for your
sidelined.
time.